After this tutorial, you're going to be able to build Java Spring Boot application using Model View Controller Pattern, MVC pattern, and understand what controller, service, model do. And you can send post request and get request using Thymeleaf templating library and understand how data binding works. And you will be able to use ORM, which is Object Relational Mapping, to map the data from the database to the Java object to use it in your code base. Alright, this is the web app that we are going to build, food menu app. Users can add food here, curry, $10, I think $10 curry. And then curry is added here. And let's add more food. It is added here. And then this success message is generated from the backend. This appears when we successfully add the food menu. Let's just see the error message. For example, potato chip. And let's say $1,000. And could not add potato chip because it's too expensive. So yeah, so this is generated from the backend. These data is stored in a database, and we can pull the data and then display it here. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Seho. I'm a software engineer based in Chicago. On this channel, we learn programming, share career tips in tech, so that we can learn, enjoy our life, make more money, and be happy. To initialize our Spring Boot application, we're going to use Spring Initializr. Spring Initializr, and click this. Now you're going to have Spring Initializr here. So let's just look through it. Project, we're going to select Maven project. So Maven is going to manage our dependencies and build our project for us. And then choose language, you're going to learn Java in this tutorial. And then Spring Boot version, this is the default, so right now, so I'm just going to use this. And then group, I don't know, my startup. And then artifact, we're going to make food application, so I'm just going to say food menu application for the description. And then we're going to have this package, Java package, for our main Java source code here. And then we're going to package jar, and then Java version, I'm going to select 17 because I happen to have Java 17. If you don't have Java, you can actually go ahead, download Java JDK. And then we're going to add dependencies here, add dependency. And then what we need is Spring Web. This is going to provide us the MVC pattern for our application, and it uses Apache Tomcat as the default embedded container. So we're going to use default Tomcat server, web server, and then we're going to have MVC. Add it. And then for the templating, we're going to use Thymeleaf. Hopefully I'm pronouncing this correctly. Thymeleaf for templating, and then we're gonna use MyBatis for our ORM. ORM is object relational mapping, and then we're gonna add another dependency called H2, in-memory database. All right, after adding all of these dependencies, let's just try to explore what this initializer is going to give us. Pom.xml dependencies are listed here. Take a look at this Java version 17. And we have Spring Boot Starter Thymeleaf for the templating, Spring Boot Starter Web. This is for the Spring Boot. And then MyBatis, and then H2 database. And then we have Spring Boot Starter Test. This is for the testing. All right, build, we have a plugin, Maven plugin here. All right, we can actually close, I don't know, we generate. let's open the program. So this is the downloaded program for me, and trust project, and now the project is open. After downloading, the first thing that you have to do is actually trying to run this. If you go to source main Java, in this package and in this application here, we can actually run this program by clicking this run button here. All right, let's try to run this main. You can run this. They both are the same thing, doing the same thing now. Okay, let's run this, and we're gonna see logs here. Okay, let's actually try to read through the logs. Okay, so starting for the application here, PID here, we have MyBatis Mapper was found in package. So it is saying that MyBatis is actually detected in the class path, and Tomcat initialized with ports 8080. So what it means is that Tomcat provides the web server, and then it is open on port 8080. So we can access this web server by accessing to localhost 8080. Okay, server service, Tomcat starting, servlet engine, Spring embedded web application context. Web application context is how Java Spring Boot knows some of the stuff that you are going to add later. So for example, like you have controller, model, service, then Spring Boot have to register those stuff to the stuff as beans, and then so that Spring Boot knows which controllers to call, which service to call, or something like that. That's what it is. And root web application context initialization completed. Cannot find template location. Okay, so cannot find the template location class path templates. And then please add some more templates. Check your Thymeleaf configuration. This is coming from the Thymeleaf related things. And then Tomcat started on port 8080. Application JVM is running. This course is for beginner. If you're a beginner, you might not really understand what these mean. But however, if you have the habit of reading logs, some of the vocabulary, some of the words will stick to your brain, will actually eventually register in your brain, because you're going to keep finding some of these words and vocabularies over and over again while in your developer's career. You don't need to take a lot of time and research about these logs, but you have to have some sort of habit. It's actually really great to have a habit of reading these logs. All right, then let's just explore some of the files. So first thing first, we have to look at these dependencies. So pom.xml, from here we can learn about dependencies. So these we already read it from Spring Initializr together. So again, we have Java version here, Thymeleaf, boot, Spring Boot, MyBatis, and the H2, and then also test, and then the Maven. And one thing that I want to make sure is that if your application didn't run when you hit the run button, make sure the Java version is the same. So here is how you check. Hit the file button, hit the file, and then here's project structure. Click on this, and then you can see project name, project SDK, project language level SDK. So make sure that all of these are same as this Java version here. If they don't match, you might have problem running the application. All right, so let's look at the files again. Pom.xml for dependencies, and then we have this help MD. Okay, so this is really useful. So while you're developing application, a lot of times we have to look for the documentation. And I think this help MD have collection of documentations that are useful for while we are using those dependencies. For example, we have Spring Boot Maven plugin reference guide, Spring Web Thymeleaf, MyBatis framework and guides. These have some of the examples, so this is pretty useful. So IDEA and MVN, these are the metadata. This is Maven metadata, and IDEA is IntelliJ metadata. And then if you look into source, main, Java, this Java is where all of our Java source code should be located. In this package, we have this entry point Java file here. This is our entry Java file that actually runs, triggers the run. And then we have this resources file here, and then templates here, and then applications properties here. So right now, application properties is empty. Spring Boot requires minimum configurations. Spring Boot prefers convention over configuration. So convention over the configuration. So it really pushes for the minimum configurations. So right now, we're just gonna leave it as default. But in the middle of the tutorial, we're gonna come back and add some configurations here. And then templates. This is where you have to create HTML templates to actually render HTML to the client. And then static, this is where you put CSS or JavaScript. All right, and then we have a test. In Java, we have food application tests. In this tutorial, we are not going to learn how to write tests. However, in real life, you really need to write these tests because tests are important. Now we explored all the important files. Okay, now let's try to implement some really basic thing. So first of all, we are going to create a controller, a new and package here, and then I'm going to type controller. Now you have this Java package here, and I'm going to create a new file called food controller. Okay, so this is a Spring Boot application. So there's Spring way of doing things. So first of all is to adding this annotation. So what it is to telling Java Spring Boot knows that this is a controller. So Java Spring Boot is going to scan these files through all of these Java classes and then find out what controllers are and services are, and Java Spring Boot is going to register this thing as a controller in a web application context. So that's how Spring Boot knows where things are and what things are in this application. So after adding the annotation, and I'm going to add an endpoint. Web endpoint, this is how you do it. Get mapping. So for the get request, you have to use this get mapping. So I will say home. When clients come into this, when client your React application, Angular application, or our HTML send get request to this address, we are going to trigger this method. Public string get home. And then we are going to return home. Okay, so it looks kind of weird. Why are we returning this string? Don't we want to return HTML? Yeah, this is how you do it. We just have to make a home.html file in this templates folder. So that's what I'm gonna do next. In this resources and templates folder, we are gonna create HTML file. And I'm just gonna say home. And then this is home.html file. And then I'm gonna change the title. I mean, we don't really need to, but, and then we're gonna say, I don't know, h2, hello, my subscribers. I don't know if you already subscribed my channel, but it's a good idea to do that. Okay, so let's try to render this home.html. Okay, in order to do that, food application, we're just gonna hit this run button. All right, Spring Boot is starting. Now you notice that we don't really have the completion anymore. Before you remember that something was saying that these template files were empty. Now it is not complaining about that. So all right, let's look at the result. All right, let's see if it really worked. Local host Tomcat web server is open on port 8080 as we read in the log. And then we're gonna say home. Hello, my subscribers. It's working. Awesome. Now let's do a little more complex things. Let's try to bind some information that we create in this controller to the templates. So so that we can actually dynamically pull some data or create some data in our web application and display that information in HTML document. So this is how you do it. We're going to take model, and then in this case, option, enter. If you do option, enter, it will automatically import this model class. And then you need this name. And then from here, you're going to do model, add attribute. And then this is gonna take a string message and then the object here. So for the object, we're gonna put the string here. String, we're gonna say hello subscribers. I am from the food controller. All right, let's see if it works. We're gonna rerun the server. Okay, it's still the same because we added attributes. However, we are not using this information from the templates. So next, that's what we're gonna be doing. Let's move on to home.html file. And now let's add some Thymeleaf things. So this is just right now, this is just a really simple HTML right now. And in order to bind data, we need Thymeleaf thing. And this is how you do Thymeleaf thing, okay? So I'm just gonna say from here, you do th text and then message. And then this is red because in order to do the Thymeleaf thing, we need to import or reference something from this. So IntelliJ is smart enough so that when it recognizes this thing and we don't have a thing to actually use it, and then it kind of displays this thing, you can actually follow that. So in this case, I have a Mac, so it's gonna be option enter. If I do option enter, boom, this is loaded, and now IntelliJ doesn't complain about it. This is view, and then food controller is a controller. I don't know if you remember, if you're familiar with MVC model, MVC pattern. So this is controller, this is view, and then controller and view need some data binding. So in Thymeleaf, this is how you do it. There's gonna be like a bunch of other stuff that you can do instead of text. We are gonna cover some of them next. So let's try to run this. From anywhere I can just click on this, run food application. This is just gonna rerun. Okay, the server is running. Let's see if it worked. Okay, hello subscribers, I am from the food controller. Now we know it works. Okay, let me introduce some abstraction layers that you must know while developing web app. Not all web apps use this pattern, but this is extremely common architecture in JVM world like Java, Scala, and Kotlin, so it is very useful to know. So, the most outer layer is controller or API layer. This layer provides endpoint, validate request, call service, and validate the results that are returned by the service, and create a HTTP response accordingly. In our case, we will create HTML and attach to the response so that users can see the UI. And the next layer is service or domain service layer. This layer deals with the main business logic of the application. So this layer is very domain specific. And it calls DAO, Database Access Object. In our case, we're going to have MyBatis Mapper. And this layer might have a couple calls to different services or third-party APIs. So for example, let's say I have a food delivery app and it might have to call the Google Map API to get the traffic data to calculate the delivery estimate or something like that. That happens in the service layer. And then lastly, there is a data access layer at the core. This layer access to the database and map the data into POJO, plain old Java object, so that engineers can work with the model that they know. So in this case, in our case, we have a MyBatis Mapper, and then it's gonna convert the data from the database into the Java object. Okay, so here's the flow of the requests. So browsers are going to call GET or POST requests, and controller will receive the request and call service to run the main business logic, and then service will call data access layer. In our case, we will have MyBatis Mapper, and MyBatis Mapper will call database to get the data and map into Java object. And then service will work with Java object and run some business logic and then send the results to the controller, and controller will verify if the operation was successful or not. In our case, in error case, we will add error message to our HTML template, and in success case, we will add success message to the template. And controller will send the HTTP response to the browser with HTML as a body. Actually try to display our food menu. So the first approach that I usually take is to creating the model. After you're creating the model, you kind of get the hint of what I need to do next. So here, from this package, Java package, I'm going to create another Java package as a model. And then in this model, we're going to create a food class. Okay, in this food class, what do we need? We needed private string food name, and then private, I would say double price. To represent the currency, actually double is not the best not the best type for representing the currency. Actually, you want to use big decimal. However, for the simplicity's sake, I'm just gonna use double in this tutorial. In Java, you have to add all the constructor and getters and setters, and your IntelliJ is capable of auto-generating those stuff. Right-click here, and then you have this generate. You can do command and instead. You can click on this, and then constructor, and then select all of these, and OK. Then IntelliJ will auto-generate this constructor. And then getters and setters are the same case. Right-click and generate, and getters and setters. Select all of these items and hit OK. Now we have food model. And then now we know what food is. Food is the class that has name and price. Okay? And then let's go to the food controller. Now let's go to home, and then I'm not the master of HTML CSS, so I'm just going to go to Bootstrap and copy and paste the table there. So from here, Bootstrap, and then click here, and then get started. And then I'm just gonna copy and paste this CSS link and then add it to, I think you add it here. Where is the table? Content, tables here. And then I like this design, so I'm just gonna copy and paste into our code base. Copy and paste is great. So let's just see if this table actually renders. So I'm just gonna run the application. Okay, so it actually renders the bootstrap and then actually renders this table correctly. We want to create the food and then feed that foods into these templates. Let's say that this is going to take an array of food, multiple food. Okay, so and then we are gonna iterate over those array of food and then display each food. And okay, table row, we have to do something like th each food from the foods. Okay, don't worry about this foods variable here. We are gonna inject these foods into this template soon in our controller. So after this, now you can have access of this food class, food instance here. And then this is how you do it. td th text food name. Oh, sorry about that. We need this brackets here. And then copy and paste. I'm gonna say th text food. We have a price here. And then this is weird. We need this here. And then let's remove this item. And then let's remove other table row here. And then let's just indent this correctly. Okay, now it looks better. Let's just fix the indentation here. Okay, now it looks better. And then we have to change this header. This is name and then price, right? And then we don't have this header. Okay, now we fixed the template. Now let's work to inject these foods, array of food into this template. Back to the food controller. Let's create array of food. Foods, and then option enter to load the auto import the food. And then we're gonna create new food. What food do you guys like? Burrito. I like burritos. $8. I don't know. $8.2 is too expensive. And another food, new food. I don't know. Pizza. And then let's another food, new food, soda, $3. And then what we're gonna do is something like this. Okay, we're gonna add model attribute. We're gonna call it as foods, and then we're gonna pass the foods, the array of foods. We are passing these foods into the template. When this template is loaded, foods is going to be injected. So let's see if it worked. I'm going to rerun the application. Let's see if it worked. Okay, it worked. However, this is still displaying. We don't want that. And then it is still like 111. I think it is hard coded now. Let's fix that. This is how you fix it. So when you do th each, you are going to be able to get the iterator. $, food, iterator index. This way, you can actually get the actual index other than just one hard-coded. I have to remove this as well. And then let's see if it worked. And refresh. Okay, it worked, but it starts from the 0. But this is for the normal user, not for the developer users. Normal people think the number starts from 1, so we have to change that. So what we gotta do is this, +1 here. Let's see if it works. Refresh. Oh yeah, it worked. So, okay, at this point, I'm just gonna be doing a little bit of styling. I'm not the best CSS person in the world, but I'm good enough to see if this is kind of ugly. So, what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna add div here. And then indent. And then I'm gonna give a class content. I'm gonna give just a style here. And then I think it's content. How do I do CSS? Okay, like this. Sorry about that. And then we have max width. I don't know. 500 pixel. And then margin, auto. I think this will arrange all the stuff into the middle. Let's rerun the server and let's see if it worked. Okay, refresh. All right, it worked. Okay, so hello subscribers, I'm from the food controller. And then the food, these are hard-coded data. These are showing properly. Now we can display these foods, and these are hard-coded. So before we add database and actually get the food from the database, I would like to do some cleanup. So I showed you the architecture. We have controller, service, and mapper. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna create some packages and then service to refactor a little bit. So first, I'm going to go ahead, create, right-click, new package. We're going to create service, and then another one, another package. We're going to create mapper. All right, now we have controller, service, mapper, and model. I'm going to write service. I'm going to create new Java class called food service. This service is going to deal with main business logic. Since our application is really simple, this service is not going to have that much code. But in real life, in real production code, the service is the most heaviest code from all of these layers. Here, I'm going to add public method, public method that returns the food array, and then import the food, get food. I'm just going to put S here to indicate that it's returning an array. So, and then we have this. Now let's just move this logic, move this whole logic into food service, and then return food. And then from this food controller, okay, if you remember our abstraction layer, controller call service. So food controller should not be just empty. It should contain the food service. Private food service is food service. Let me add this, import class. We are gonna add a constructor. I'm gonna do Command N. You can do the right click and generate. And then I can add the constructor here. Okay. All right, now we added the constructor. You know, this is kind of like a magic here because I'm just gonna be able to call food service and then get foods. You remember we added this get foods method here, and then we're gonna return this from the service. Okay. Okay, now let's try to run if it works. I'm going to rerun the server, and this should error out. All right, as you can see, application failed to start. This is the error log. It says parameter 0 of constructor in food controller required a bean of type food service that could not be found. Okay, so it is saying that we are missing a bean. What it is saying is that Spring Boot is trying to do the dependency injection for us. However, they could not find this bean to run it. So what we have to do is actually adding the bean annotation to indicate this is the bean. Okay, so as we added annotation, control annotation here, we are going to add annotation here as well. So what we are going to do, add service annotation. You can actually do component annotation, but however, these do the same thing. These are telling that it's been, but however, service is more explicit. After you add this service, now Spring Boot can implicitly create this food service. Let's try to run this again to see if it fixed the problem. All right, it is running correctly. Now let's go to the application and see if it works the same. It works the same. We have burrito, pizza, and soda. Use H2 database, we have to configure it. So in order to do that, let's just go to the Spring website, common application properties. So here we can find all of the configurations that we can configure in our application properties. So this is where configuration happens, okay? And when it's empty, we run with default configurations that Spring Boot provides, and all of those work fine, but sometimes you have to enable some of the features in order to use the stuff. This list is gigantic, okay? This is kind of daunting. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna search H2 here. So it says Spring H2 console enabled. The default is false, okay? So in order to use the console, you need to copy and paste and then change the value to true. Because the default is false, then I'm gonna rerun the application and then see if we can access to the console. From here, we're gonna say H2 console. This is the default URL to access the H2 console. Now we can actually access to the console. So let's try to connect. Okay, so database memory test DB not found. So what it means is that, hey, JDBC H2 in memory, this is the test DB that we are trying to access. I think this value is kind of cached. The login doesn't work, right? Now let's try to find out from the log. There is H2 related console log here. H2 console available at H2 console, the URL, and then database available at JDBC H2 memory, and then this is probably some sort of alias to the memory. Okay, we're gonna copy and paste, and then here, username and password, there's gonna be some default, and we can just probably connect to it. Now we accessed to the H2 console. So from here, we can do a bunch of stuff. We can create table, we can do insert the data or something like that. We can do lots of stuff. Let's try some experimentation. So let's try to create table. Create table food. We need ID. ID, this is gonna be integer, and this is primary key, and auto increment, so that we don't need to deal with the ID. And then we're gonna give name. Name is string, which is varchar. And then we have price, which is double. And then we're gonna run this and see if it works. Okay, it worked. There's a food table here, right? So now let's try to insert some data here. So insert into food values. No, burrito. Okay, let's run this. All of these are added, and let's see if it worked. Select star from food. Let's just select all unselected. Okay, so the database is connected, and then we can actually manipulate the data using this console. All right. So we access this H2 console with the weird database name, right? But that's not really convenient. This is hard, right? Hard to memorize. I don't know if you have a photographic memory. But anyway, we are going to configure that as well. So in Spring, let's look at the documentation again. I think it's in data properties. What you gotta do is search data source, and then there's gonna be tons of data. So, but there is gonna be URL related. So I don't know. It's hard to find anything. Okay, so Spring database URL. What I want to do is actually copy and paste this guy, and then change to JDBC, H2, memory, and then test DB. This way we can point to this database here other than some encrypted long alias that points to the memory or something. So let's rerun this. Let's run this. All right, Spring Boot is running. And then we change this name to testDB, right? testDB. And then username and password same. You can also change this username and password adding the properties. But in this tutorial, we're gonna skip that. Now connect. And now, as you can see, we can access to it. However, because I reran the application, now the food table is gone, right? Food table is gone. There's no data here. The reason is that it is because it is in-memory database, okay? When you reboot the application, the data is gone. We want to have some sort of initial data to work with when the application boot, okay? So what we can do is go to this resources folder. In this resources folder, we're gonna create schema SQL. In this schema.sql file, we are going to create the table here. Create table, food, and then we need an ID. ID is an integer, and primary key, auto increment. And then we're going to have a name. Name is a bar chart. And then we have price, which is double. Okay, this will run after Spring Boot actually boots. And let's insert some data here. So in order to do that, you can actually add insert statement here. You can do insert into food, and then now we have a script. You can actually have it, but then the convention is to actually having schema.sql and then data.sql. So I'm gonna create that. Data SQL. From the schema, I'm just gonna have the seeds data in data SQL here. And keep that in mind that this file name have to be exactly schema and data. This is the default setting. If you change these names, Spring Boot might not recognize that SQL script and not run. So keep that in mind. All right, so after we have this data and schema, let's try to run the application again and access to the H2 console app and see if the data is actually populated. Oh, but we got an error. I'm guessing we're missing this individually, I think. Sorry about that. Let's rerun this. Okay, now it runs. Now let's check out if the data is populated in H2 console. Connect, and then food is there. Yay! So select from food. We're gonna run it. Now we have burrito, pizza, soda, just like we defined it here. Okay, Now, whenever we start the boot, there's a data there, so we can actually work with that data right now. So what we're gonna do is now I have food controller, food service, right? In food service, we're creating these hard-coded foods here. Instead of that, we are going to create a mapper. Now let's create a mapper in order to access to the database. So this is how we do it. So we have controller, mapper, model, service. In mapper package, we're going to create food mapper. And then it also, of course, mapper has to be a Java bean. The 3 layers, do you remember, right? Those components have to be components. And in this case, we're going to be more specific, mapper. Okay, mapper, you have to remember that that mapper is not a class. It should be an interface. Why? Don't ask me why. This is a framework, and then you have to follow the rule. That's why sometimes people don't like framework. They prefer small library, because framework gives you really opinionated way of doing things. So we follow the rule. In here, we're just gonna write something like this: food, select foods, and then because this is interface, you don't need to provide any details here. However, you need to put some annotation here. So from this, we're gonna run SQL query directly. What it means is that you can write something like this: select, and then now you have to write the query here: select star from food. When you call this method, MyBatis is going to run this query and then get the data and then map that data into this array of food. So I know that there's a lot of magic going on here, but this is just how we do things. So let's actually try to run this mapper method from the service. Okay, food service. We don't have a constructor here. We're gonna add mapper and then a constructor. So we say private food mapper. Food mapper gets imported, food mapper. And then let's add command N constructor and hit enter. Now constructor is built, and Spring Boot is going to handle the dependency injection for us. So we can just now call the food mapper, and then select foods. This should work, hopefully. So I'm gonna rerun the server. Hopefully I don't have any bug. Rerunning the server, and then I'm just gonna go here and then home again. Okay, we got an error. So this application has no explicit mapping. Okay, let's read the error message here. So the number format exception for input string burrito, and then it is from Java base Java lang double parse double. Okay, what does this string burrito has to do with parse double? Convert to double, convert to get double. Okay, in our food class, we don't have ID here. When you select from food, the food will have ID, name, and price. However, in our model, the food has only name and price. The mapping is not working correctly. So this food class and the return type of this thing has to kind of match. The number of columns, number of attributes have to match. So in order to do that, let's fix our class. So private, integer, not integer, and int. Oh, wait, ID. This integer is nullable. This is class. I'm using this for the later purpose, to use it because I want this be able to be null when we're adding the form. But anyway, we're gonna talk about that later. So food here, let's fix the constructor integer ID, and this is gonna be this ID is ID. And then also let's add getters and setters. In order to do that, you can actually do the same thing, Command N, getters and setters. You can actually now, IntelliJ is smart enough to notice that this one doesn't have getters and setters, so hit OK, and now you have getters and setters. And let's take a look at food mapper again. Okay, so remove this, select from food, and then I think it's gonna work. Let's rerun this. Okay, the server is running. Home, I'm gonna hit the refresh. Now it works. These are coming from our database. Let's see if the numbers are matching. So we have data.sql. Okay, 5.2, 13.2, 2.2. Okay, these are from the database now. We're gonna add a form to actually insert the food. Okay, so this is a little bit boring now. So let's add the form. So in order to do that, I'm just gonna go to Bootstrap and copy and paste a form. Let's go to Overview. I think this is great. I'm copy and pasting this, and then go to home.html, and then I'm gonna copy and paste. Okay, and then we have these 3 divs. Let me see. Let me remove something that is unnecessary for us. I think we don't need this. We don't need this as well. So I'm just gonna remove that. Remove. This is, oh wait, what was that? I will never share your email with anyone else. Okay, we don't need this. Check me out. We don't need this. Input field is gonna be name of the food, and then this is going to be the price of the food. Let's see if it renders the form correctly. Refresh. Okay, it is displaying the form correctly, and this one I want that to be on the top. Okay, now we have a form to add food. I'm just gonna change to add food here. Okay, so let's think about the flow now. Okay, so now let's think about the flow. Request is gonna come from the form, and that is gonna be post request. And then we have to have a post request handler here. We need to have a post mapping here, and from that controller, we're gonna call the service, like maybe insert food or something like that, or add food or something like that. And then this service using mapper, food mapper, we're gonna insert the food and then store into our database. I'm gonna give you a little bit of hint. Now you have a flow in your mind. It's actually easier. I found it easier to work backward. So you might be writing controller and service and database data access layer. However, when you're writing controller code, you have a service, right? The things are gonna be red on your IntelliJ because data access layer code is not done, service code is not done. So everything is gonna be red if you start writing controller first. So I prefer coming from the backward. So I complete the data access layer first. For example, I'm gonna add a insert food method from here, and then with that mapper, I complete the service, and then after I complete the service, I complete the controller. That way, you can kind of utilize the power of your IDE, type checking, and stuff like that. I'm gonna work on food mapper first. Here, I'm gonna add insert annotation because we're gonna insert the food. Import, and then insert into food. This is gonna be name and price, and then values. Values are going to be, okay, here you have to look carefully here. We're gonna do the sharp and name, and then sharp and price. All right, and then in int insert food and food. Okay, so this is also a magic, right? So you're inserting the food, passing the food class here, and then you kind of have name and price. It's kind of like a weird, right? Where is this coming from? So this is framework again. So it's going to actually resolve this food. Actually, MyBatis is going to insert food, and then it's gonna grab. It's going to do something like this, food.name and stuff like that behind the scene. So you can just pass the food and then write the attribute name correctly. You just have to make sure that you have proper getters and setter in order this magic to be working. All right, so mapper is there. Now let's move on to service. Food service. And then from here, we are going to add a public method. Add food. And this will take food. And then do fancy thing, do fancy business logic thing. And then after that, food mapper. And then insert food. And then you're going to add food. Okay. And then you're going to return the result. All right. And then after service, now you move to food controller and then add a method that controls the access post mapping. It's going to be the same, home. I mean, in real production, if you are creating a RESTful API, you can do like API version 1, food, maybe add, insert, whatever, and stuff like this. However, we are creating an MVC app. The endpoint is deeply connected to the view, which is HTML templates. So I'm just going to say post. And then we have same home twice here. It doesn't matter. This is for the post request. This is for the get request. So we're going to say public string, not strong. Public string add food model. Now here is something interesting here. You're gonna pass the food, okay? Because you have to actually get the food from the template. So what you are gonna do is actually call the service, right? Food service, and then add food. Pass the food here. Okay, so let's do some handling here. If this service call is successful, it is going to return a number of rows that it's added. So in this case, if it is larger than 0, it is success. But if it is smaller than 1, it is failure. So in this case, we need to handle the error. So I'm going to add model, add attribute, error message. I'm going to say could not add. I'm going to use string formatter. Could not add food get name, and then else here. This is success. So model attribute success message is I'm going to copy and paste, and then success message here. Successfully added the food, and then at the end of this, you have to return home, like how you did it before. Now you have to do the data binding between the form and then this controller, so that HTML the view can actually send this food. So that's what we're gonna be doing now. So in order to do that in this form, we have to tie this form and the model. So th object, and it's gonna be something like this, food. And then what we have to do is adding action here. Okay, this is weird. I have to put this quote here. And then th action. So we have to indicate where the request is going to be sent. So that is at, and then that is going to be API, not home. And then I think this is th method. Method is going to be post. When you send the submit, we're gonna send HTTP request to the home URL with post method with the food object bind into it. Okay, so when we are creating this form, we have to actually modify this food object to append name and price. In order to do that, you have to update this input here. You're gonna do th, and then field, and then here's another stuff that you have to remember is this asterisk, and then the name. Okay, name of the attribute, which is happen to be name. When you do that, this is going to be this value, this input value is going to be the name attribute. So we're gonna do the same thing in the password, not the password, price. And I think this is also text. And then let's do the same thing here, th field. Okay, I didn't copy and paste the whole thing. Okay, this one is price. Actually, this type should be input, actually. Input, and then this is something weird. Like you have to actually put the name here. Name of this field is name, and then name of this field is price. Okay, this is a lot of rule, right? Like if you didn't really know, if you haven't developed with Thymeleaf, like how do you remember you have to put the name here, this name, and then have to be the same, right? This is a lot of stuff to remember. So I think this will do. Button type submit. Okay, I think this will do. So let's rerun the server. I touched a lot of files. Hopefully it works. Okay, the server is running. I'm gonna hit the refresh. Okay, of course there's error. Property or field name cannot be found or null. So exception evaluating Spring EL expression name, template home, line 21. Okay, it is saying that in line 21 there's an error. Okay, let's actually read more. Okay, this is an error. Stack trace. And then it says property or field name cannot be found on null. Okay, so it is trying to grab this name. However, this food was null. Okay, so here is something that you have to keep in mind when debugging this type of application. So let's take a look at the control flow. So when we hit the home, we actually run this function. However, if you remember, right now we have this home template is asking for food object, but it couldn't find food object, so it is null. and then it is trying to have this value of this food, food name. However, this is can't access because this is null. So if you look at the controller again, now we don't really inject food anywhere here. So what you gotta do is actually food, pass the food here. Okay, it's kind of like a weird, like we don't even use this food in this method. However, we need it because there's magic behind it. For somehow Spring is going to create empty food and pass it. Okay, it seems like that's what's going on. So after adding this food, let's try to rerun this. Hit the refresh. It works. Let's try to insert the data. Curry, $10, add food. Okay, something happened. Okay, let's try to see what just happened. We got this home page, and then by sending the this add food button, we sent the post request to this handler. I think we actually did this operation and returned home. And this home doesn't have, like now it has probably like success message floating around in the templating. However, we never really used it. That's why it is just return empty form and empty field. We add the food here. So I'm just gonna say, let's say result. I think we're gonna need it in the future. So we're gonna add food here. And then depending on the result, we add attributes and then just return it. So now what we gotta do is this. Regardless of the results, we just have to keep displaying the food that we originally had, right? So in order to do that, this is what you gotta do. You have to use the service, food service, and get food again. And then add that into the add attribute, foods, food. And then after that, you're going to be able to still return the food here. So let's rerun the server and refresh. Okay, it's not loading yet. Okay, let's add the food again. Okay, it is added. And I don't know, Apple, $2. It is added. Okay, so now it's working correctly. Now let's do some validation. So let's try to add these messages into our HTML. So in order to do that, let's change a couple things. I don't think this message is useful. So I'm just gonna say, hello, my subscribers. Always have it. I'm gonna add div. This is gonna be success message. Grab from the model. Success message and th text. Success message. Okay. So what it is that if there is success message in the model, we're gonna display that success message. And here, let's do error message here, error. And then here we're gonna do error as well. All right. So let's check the controller again. And when the result is smaller than 1, for some reason we failed to add, right? Could not add here, and then the success message here. So let's try to run this. And then home. Let's add apple and 1. Okay, success message. Okay, typo. Success message is loading up correctly. So I think this is not that pretty. So I'm just gonna go ahead, copy and paste some of the alerts from the bootstraps. This is in the component alert. I'm gonna use this green and red alerts here. So I'm just gonna do, I think you can copy and paste class. I'm gonna add it here, success. Copy and paste. And copy and paste. This is gonna be error. And let's rerun. Guys, it's almost done. Home. Hello, one. Successfully added. Hello. Okay, so I kind of want to test out the error message. In this case, let's add more validation. So let's say that if the food price, if the user tries to put food that is too expensive, then we send the error message. Let's do that. So this is when kind of like a request validation is happening. In production, if you're making a RESTful API, you're going to kind of validate the data that is coming from the post request, get the body, and then check if JSON is correct or data is correct or stuff like that. I'm gonna be doing that kind of similar stuff here. So what I'm gonna do, if food get price is, I don't know, $1,000, then we hit the error message. I'm gonna do man, that is too expensive. Okay, and then we need else if here. We're just gonna take out this. We're gonna add food here and then evaluate the result. If the result is bad, then model add attribute error message. I guess this is the same here. Copy and paste. And then else is the success case, right? In this case, we're gonna do model add attribute success message. And then it's gonna be, I'll just copy and paste this guy. Success case. And then let's remove these. And then this is validation is happening. And while you're doing that, add food along the way. And then get foods, attach the foods, bind the foods, and then return home. So let's try out. Home. Hello, my subscribers. Successfully added curry. And curry is here. And then apple. Add food. Okay, burger. And then was $1,000, right? $1,000, $2,000 burger. Add food. Cannot add burger. That is too expensive. Okay, so error is not properly styled. Maybe it's not alert error. I think it's error alert danger. So if I change this, it's gonna work correctly. And then I'm just gonna change my food menu app. Okay, rerun the server. Go to home again. Food menu app. Curry, $10. Okay, burger, $2,000. Too expensive. Okay, so all right, we completed the application, and this is the end of the tutorial. And if you followed along until now, congratulations. I'm really proud of you. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I know my tutorial is not perfect, and I want to always make better tutorials. So if you have any suggestions, please comment below so that actually I can improve my quality of tutorials. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.